What's going on, guys? We have a very special video for today. My good friend and mentor, Devin DiNofa, he heads up a real estate team in South Jersey and Philadelphia. He invited me into one of his team meetings to talk all things cold calling. The meeting lasted about an hour long, a lot of great content throughout. I did put the different times of the different topics in the description below so you guys could bounce around, but there's a lot of really good content, so I would advise you guys to watch the entire thing. Hope you guys enjoy the conversation.
Go for it.
Yes, I'm a business development manager at a company called Formcraft. We're an architect in Center City. We design and construct office spaces. So it's my job at the company to make sure that every business owner in the greater Philadelphia area knows that we can make their dream office a reality, both on time and on budget. So I do a ton of cold calling. Also, every Thursday I'm out in the field, do a ton of door knocking as well. And then as Devin mentioned, thank you for the nice intro, Devin. I put a lot of content out there, and actually a bit of background on the content. I started with the videos a while back, probably back in September when I started at Formcraft. And the reason why I started putting videos out, I was having trouble, for my first video, I was having trouble cold calling. So I put a video of myself cold calling companies on LinkedIn, and I asked for help in a LinkedIn post, and I tagged about 5 to 6 authors of books that I read. And all 5, 6 authors came back with advice. And 2 of the authors came back, and I had a 30-minute call with them, and they helped me get my cold call framework correct. So it really started out as a selfish reason to start putting the videos out because I saw that I could get a ton of help by doing that. And then I just found out that these simple, 1 to 2 minute videos with my iPhone are helping others out. Now we have a whole production. We got like 3 cameras and lights and all that stuff. But I appreciate you guys watching the videos. And I think today, I guess like one thing that we want to probably do is if there's one key or one takeaway actionable tip that you could use on a cold call tomorrow, I think if you guys could take one of those things away from the call, I think that'd be great. So here's kind of the layout. We could start with mindset, attitude, and forgive me if I'm looking down at my notes. I just want to make sure I'm hitting on all the points I want to hit. Second, how to become rejection proof. 3, how to open a cold call. 4, objection handling, or my objection handling process. And then 5, closing out the cold call. And if there's anything we don't get to, I'd be more than happy to hop on another call, whenever you guys do these. So just let me know.
Awesome.
So we will hop right in. So mindset and attitude, it sounds really cheesy and cliche, but mindset and attitude is definitely the foundation for success in cold calling. It's really the foundation for success in anything. But a year ago, I always hustled, always worked hard, but I sucked at cold calling. And the only real reason I sucked at cold calling is because I had the incorrect mindset and attitude and viewpoint towards cold calling. So how I kind of viewed it in the past was I need to make something happen on every single call. So I either need to set a meeting, I need to have a 1-call close, I need to close a deal. I need to make something happen on every single call. And when you have that mindset and attitude towards cold calling or door knocking or prospecting in sales, you're going to be pushing an agenda on the prospect. And prospects never like when you push an agenda on them, and it's just uncomfortable. And also, you're going to be putting a lot of undue pressure on yourself. It's very unlikely to walk into a business the first time and get a sale. Or it's very unlikely to call someone on a cold call, and this is the first time you're calling them, and to book a meeting.
All right, so
It's super.
I saw you say that on one of your calls, and
Yeah.
in our business too, it's like, hey, I'll give you an example. I was calling today, right? I was calling expired listings. Called the guy in Morristown, and the guy pretty much was like, hey, I get a lot of you guys calling me, and he had his house listed, it expired, and he just said, well, listen, this is the deal. If you bring me a buyer, he said flat out, he's like, if you bring me a buyer, then I'll do business with you, and I have other properties that you can sell. Now,
Yeah.
in this business, the goal is to try and get the listing so we can get the exclusive right to put that out on the trend, to blast them out to all the other realtors, and have the exclusive listing to sell this. So he was just saying, hey, you bring me a buyer, So that was, so to your point, when we're making these calls to call development, sometimes I'll speak to myself, man, if I make 50 calls and have 7 conversations and I don't get an appointment that day, I feel like I failed. But from what I'm understanding, what you're saying is, dude, that's just like, hey, you just got your foot in the door and you're in the foyer of the house right now.
Now they know who you are. Number one, you know who they are now. They know who you are. And number two, they answer their phone, which is great. So the next time you're going to call them, you're going to get them on the phone and you're going to have a really good shot. Hopefully, this time, if it's a follow-up call, if you did the first call the right way, it closed them on an appointment.
Yeah. Okay.
So, my current mindset now after receiving a ton of coaching about a year ago is I'm simply trying to see what might happen with the business down the road. So the mindset now is just all around curiosity. And because of that mindset, I no longer am pushing an agenda on the prospect. And I'm not putting any undue pressure on myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that ties in with all of our other marketing and everything. Just for everyone else on the call, is like, hey, when you're doing postcards, doing Facebook marketing, it's all long term. And yeah, that's great that you're saying that. Like, hey, you're not expecting on the first call to land the job. It's like, what future business can I get from this? That's great.
Exactly. And I think the key words there are down the road, because the calls that I make today are not going to benefit me tomorrow. My sales cycle at Formcraft is 2 years. The calls that I make today, because I set realistic expectations and I know that this is about down the road and trying to see what might happen with the business, my calls today are going to benefit me in a year.
That's huge. That's a huge thing to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're building relationships basically via the phone.
So if I'm not cold calling today, I had a really bad sales month back in August, and the only reason I had a bad sales month in August was because probably 6 months prior, I was not doing what I was supposed to be doing as far as cold calls. And that's why my follow-up calls were not booking appointments, right? So the calls we make today are going to benefit us in the future, not today or probably not tomorrow. So that's really the mindset. And once I fixed my mindset, that really laid the foundation and the bricks to really let the other things go into place and start to expand on the skill set that I was learning from my coach, John Clemson, as far as the cold calling goes. But if you could get that down, you're really well on your way. 100%.
Awesome.
All right. So then we're going to talk about how to become rejection proof. So the only real way you're going to become rejection proof is just frequency of calls. You're going to have to make a ton of calls consistently. Do your calls in time blocks. Do 20 calls at a time, take a break, walk around the building, 20 more calls at a time, 20 more calls at a time. Do that over 6 to 7 months. It took me probably 8 months at Formcraft to be fully rejection proof and have the framework for opening the call down, all the objection handlers, when to know how to invite myself out of the call, and how to ask for the appointment. Probably took me 8 months. And that seems like a long time, so you got to definitely be patient with it. But frequency of calls will definitely get you there. And there's a rule that I use to this day. It's called the 3-second rule. So when I cold call someone and I hang up, whether it's a good call or a bad call, I'm counting to 3. Right now, it's subconsciously now. I'm counting to 3 and picking up the phone and dialing. Because in the past, in other jobs, whenever I had a really bad call or a bad door knock, I would start to think about it. I would let it dwell, and then I want to pick up the phone again for another maybe hour or 2 hours, or maybe not even call someone that rest of the day or hit another door, because I let that sink into my mind, right? So count to 3 and just dial. Count to 3 and just hit the door, and you're always going to do it. So the 3-second rule, that's probably the most important rule that I live by both personally and professionally, but it really, really helps in cold calling. And then 2 more points around being rejection proof. I'm not attached to the results of my calls. That goes back to the mindset on just simply trying to see what might happen with the business. I'm not attached. The person hangs up, okay. If they say that they went with Gensler instead of Formcraft, that's fine. I kind of expect it, right? So I set realistic expectations, and also I set realistic expectations for my results. Because I think a lot of times, I think a big problem in sales, I know when I was at Comcast Business, we always had like a call like this where we would hop on a call at night and we had to go through the numbers. And if you didn't have a 1-call close that day, you were considered a failure. So the expectation was almost every single door you hit, you got to either close or close on an appointment, which was absolutely ridiculous. And if you don't do that and you see yourself as a failure, that's going to get in the way of becoming rejection proof. So those are probably the 4 key points you want to just remember on how to become rejection proof. Once you have the mindset and the rejection proof is there, it's really, really, it's not hard. It's pretty easy. to book some appointments.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
You're like, do you go into every call with a game plan, or is it more of a feel for the conversation? So like, because you said curiosity is huge, right? So
curiosity.
You go in there, do you go and just feel the caller out, or is it just like, I know what I'm going to say and I'm just going to spit this out right now?
No, further on in the call, actually right away. I mean, I can tell right off the bat if this person is going to be into the conversation and engaged.
Right.
So the latter of what you said. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So you kind of, started off, with your pitch essentially, and then you kind of feel off of their reply. If they're locked into you, then
feel off their tone, their pace. I mean, you could easily tell if someone does not want you talking to them, right?
Yeah, well, and that's the tough part I think about cold calling is like nobody really wants that phone call until you have them, locked into what you're giving them.
Mm-hmm.
That's when they start giving you something back. Because essentially, if you call me and you're like, look, it's 9 o'clock. You listed this house. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to talk to you right now. But you have to grasp them somehow. So I guess I'm just curious, as in when you go in, you have your first 20 seconds. You're gonna give them the juice of.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get into that. Yeah, we're gonna get right into that. We'll move right in there now. So.
Hold on, but
real quick.
No, yeah, we're gonna get into that, which I appreciate that. But I really want to just reiterate the points that you're making, because so much about cold calling, I feel like, is your attitude right when you start. And I feel like when I, and I still catch myself now, it's like when I'm about to make that call, I like automatically as a human start putting some negative story run in my head to where like, I'm going to call this person, they're going to be telling me to go fuck myself, blah, blah, blah. But Matt, I got a question to ask you. Like, I'll give you one mindset tip that I always have to myself is, there's one, like, hey, make yourself excited about no's. So maybe when I book my time block and I'm like, okay, I'm not stopping till I hear 50 no's. So that may trick your mind into be excited about hearing the word no, right? And then another one is, hey, listen, if, let's just say it takes me 100 calls today to make one appointment to where I get a listing, divide that commission by however many calls I made, and boom, I made myself $50 a call. Do you have any
exactly
like mindset techniques or tricks that you do to fire you up to make these calls? You already highlighted some of these things that come in like with the energy and you're like, hey, know that it's not always going to be like right off the bat you're going to set that appointment, but sometimes it can be.
Absolutely. Now, I will say that I don't like cold calling. Like, I don't enjoy sitting at my desk for 4 hours cold calling, but I do like making money, and it does make me money. So I guess like the thing is sometimes, I've learned, you guys are much older, have more experience but I've learned in like 3 years that sometimes you have to do some stuff that suck, but if it makes you money,
that's true.
But I definitely, Devin, what you were saying, I keep track of my stats like really, really closely. So I know exactly how many calls I need to make to book an appointment.
Really?
Okay, that was my next question. So that you do know your numbers, like, hey, it's going to take me 100 calls, and kind of to add to Devin's point, like, all right, hey, if I make $1,000, all right, well, I'm making every call is worth
every call or every door knock, even if they say no, that's going to be worth something. And I really see sales like sports. If you were to ask LeBron James what his stats were in 2015, I bet you he could rattle them off like that. Like, athletes know their stats. And I think that, professional salespeople, they mostly know their stats. They know their numbers inside and out, and then they know what they have to do to hit their number.
Now, I'll give you guys one example.
Devin, what's up?
I'll give you one example. Like today, I was, I blocked out time from 1 to 3 to just call expireds. And literally my probably 6th house that I call, I was hitting up Morristown. And it was literally an $800,000 house in Morristown. I had a conversation with this guy. And I have his address, I have his name, I have his phone number, I'm going to mail out to him. And now that I'm saying to Matt, it's like, hey, I'm going to mail him or something and then follow up with the second call. Now he'll know me, and that's persistence. But, I felt like because I didn't have the right, kind of like scripts and dialogue, so I couldn't really counter to really get him more comfortable with me. But that I didn't really close it. But just to give you guys a live example, like if you're thinking to yourself, how do I make money in this business? That was my probably 6th or 7th house that I called, you know what I mean, just from the tools that we provide. And if I would have probably talked to Matt beforehand, and now listen, this still, now to base off of this conversation, if I do this the right way, the follow-ups, the money's in the follow-up, like I still may be able to bag this listing. It's $800,000 Morristown listing right off the golf course. And this is all from just making the decision. It first was a result of making the decision to set the time block to make the calls. That's where it all starts. To making that discipline commitment, I'm blocking this time out to make the calls. That's the fucking first thing it was.
Mm-hmm.
But then it was, hey, then making the calls, and then, you know, I felt like I should have been a little bit more. I felt like I could have done a lot better on that call to kind of make him feel a little bit more comfortable with me, to set up an appointment for me to show up at the house and show him that we can do marketing, because he just flat out was saying, can you bring a buyer to me now? You know, or bring a buyer to me, and then I'll tell you what we can do, and then I'll let you sell some other house that I had. So it was like I kind of stumbled a little bit there to where I was like, hey, well, you know.
That's what everyone thinks, man.
Yeah.
I think like that all the time too, and that's you don't want to do that either.
Yeah.
Like there's been so many times the past year where I was like, oh, that call went great. I didn't get an appointment. Should I push there to ask for the appointment? And it probably didn't make sense. And guess what? I'm going to have probably 100% chance when I follow up to book it because I did the call the right way. But yeah, I wouldn't. It's hard not to think like that though. But not to sound like doomsday over here, but I would say 4 out of 5 of my days cold calling are pretty bad. But it's that one day that's like you get like 5 appointments. They're with like 5 CEOs of big companies, and you're making a lot of money. They have potential projects coming up. It's like that one day or that one call a week that's really, really good that kind of just keeps you going and keeps you pushing through the cold calls.
Yeah.
All right. Want to move into how to open a cold call?
Yeah, no, I mean, I felt like anybody have any questions, or you understand, like it all starts with the mindset to try and deflect all the negative thoughts that you can have in your head to make these calls. But I just want to share that story because that was a realistic situation that just happened today, guys. $800,000 listing. You know what I mean? That was off of the 7th house that I called, and that could be you. And, you know, maybe in the span of 2 hours, maybe I called 20 houses, left some messages. I shot some emails and texts. It could come out. But listen, man, that's a lot of money that could be made if you had that listing. And then plus not to even factor in, if you're prospecting that, the buyers that you can get from that. If you're prospecting neighborhood, the other listings that you can get, the brand awareness that you can get from having a really good listing like that. Some listings can put you on the map when it comes to your real estate brand. So I just want to share that with you guys to say, like, listen, man, you know, that's why I really wanted to have this call with Matt, so you guys can feel more comfortable to make these calls that can make you a ton of money, literally in your boxer shorts at your house. So there's no excuses why you can't make money in this business. Okay, Matt, let's go to the next one.
Cool. Yeah, so how to open a cold call. So my goal to open a cold call, it's pretty simple. Get the prospect engaged in the conversation as quickly as possible and get to the first objection as quickly as possible. So those are my 2 goals when I'm opening up a cold call. Engagement and get to that objection as quickly as I can. So there's a couple things you don't want to do with the opening. So I never ask, how are you?
Yep. All right.
Someone on the phone. You know, you think about it. If a salesperson called me right now and they said, hey, Matt, this is John. How's it going? I have no idea who you are. I know you don't care how I'm doing.
Right.
At all. And you kind of lose any momentum on the call when you ask that. It really depends. I mean, there's a couple guys in my office that ask it. It works for them. It doesn't work for me. I'm not saying don't do it, but that's just one of the pet peeves I have. I never ask the prospect how they're doing unless it's a follow-up call and I had really good rapport with them, or if I know them or I met them in the past. So I'm never starting out with that. And then number 2, I'm never asking, for an example, if I was calling Devin and Devin picked up the phone and said hello, I'm not saying, is this Devin?
You know who you're calling.
I have direct dials. I have cell phone numbers. I know exactly who I'm calling. I'm calling, John and Mary Ann McNamara's house, and a guy picks up and he says hello, 9 out of 10 times or 99 out of 100 times, that's definitely John picking up the phone. So instead of saying, is this John, if he doesn't indicate it's John, you simply say their name, Devin, and then Devin's going to say, yes, this is Devin, and then get right into the call. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, and sorry.
What do you mean by like get to the first objection?
Yeah, so on every single cold call, there's going to be at least one objection. At least one objection. I want to get to that objection as quickly as possible so I can handle it and move the conversation forward.
Are you setting them up or giving them like a layup, like to say no, or just the call will naturally have an objection?
I mean, the call is probably naturally going to have an objection. The chances if they're in the market for what you do and want to hire someone like you are pretty slim. But we could get into exactly how I end off my opening. I know exactly what they're going to say. And it's always going to be an objection, and I know exactly how to handle it to move the conversation forward. So I think I'll be able to answer your question, Tom, once we get through exactly like the language I use to open it, the cold call. All
So
right.
you're saying, because I remember watching one of your videos, and it was like, hey, listen, it's like almost kind of disrespectful to not do your due diligence to see, hey, if this is the right number you're calling. To be like, hey, is this John? And be like, hey, you should already know if that's John when you're calling that phone from your due diligence on the prospect.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, so those are two things that I would probably not do. The how are you, that could be up for debate. And then another thing, I never use any industry jargon or like big words when I'm doing my cold call opening. I'm calling like I'm talking to a fifth grader. I want to make sure a fifth grader understands exactly what I'm saying, why I'm calling, who I am, where I'm calling from, what I'm about. There's so many people out there that use these big words. We specialize in every salesperson sounds like the same thing, and I'm trying not to sound like any other salesperson. So I dumb it down, keep it really simple. It helps me out, right?
Yeah.
All right.
So do you lead with your intro right from the beginning?
Yes. So we'll get right into exactly, there's like one more point I have and then exactly how I open it. And then I have actually an example here. You guys can actually help me out because I didn't have enough time to check out Tom Ferry's scripts, but I put one together that might work.
That's cool.
And then just two more things that's really important. Expect every single call you make to get picked up. Every single call you make to get picked up, because there's been times where there was a guy I made contact with yesterday, and I called him over the course of 8 months, probably close to 70 times in 8 months, and 69 times it went to voicemail. And if I were to think and expect that next call to go to voicemail and he picks up, I'm not going to be ready to get into that conversation. I'm going to sound surprised that he answered. So expect every single call you make to get picked up. And just a stat, about 10% of calls, if you have direct dials, make contact. If you don't have direct dials, about 6 to 8%. So that's
What is direct dials? Is that like
I'm sorry?
Direct dials, is that like a system or something like that you use?
Direct dials like cell phone numbers, or if you're calling businesses, if you have their direct extension.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hold on 1 second here. All right, so now we could get into the formula. So I always kick off the call by thanking them for taking the call. So I simply say, thanks, Devin, for picking up my call. Very, very simple.
So wait. So phone rings, like let's just say you're calling me, phone's ring,
Yeah.
I say hello.
And I say, Devin.
Yeah, this is Devin. Who's this?
Devin, thanks for taking my call. It's Matt with Formcraft, and I'll get into the rest of it.
Okay, cool.
You can do a full role play if you want.
Yeah,
later.
no. I was just making sure what that intro was like. That's I know you're going to go through the whole thing.
So I just
wanted to verify what that.
Yeah. So I always kick off. That's just my thing to do. Thanks for taking my call. If it's Friday, happy Friday. Like really simple, right? Then I'm going to say who I am, where I'm calling from, and then a very short statement about what I do, and then I'm going to follow up with an open-ended question that hopefully gets the prospect engaged in a conversation. So thank them for taking the calls, number one. Number 2, who I am, where I'm calling from. Number 3, a short statement about what I do. And then number 4, an open-ended qualifying question that gets them engaged in a conversation. So if Devin picked up the phone, I would say, Devin, thanks for taking my call. It's Matt with Formcraft. We design and build office spaces. And I simply pause there and allow some silence to get in, because 9 out of 10 times when I allow that silence to get in, they typically say to me, oh, Matt, how's it going?
Yeah.
Or if they don't, I just move on with the call. So I'll say, Devin, thanks for taking my call. It's Matt with Formcraft. We design and build office spaces. The reason I'm calling today, Devin, curious to learn how we might be useful to you and your team down the road. How's my timing related to your office space on Market Street?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so you jump right into trying to set an appointment. Like, you don't say, hey, how can we help you? It's just like, hey, can I get in there on Tuesday, or what's your schedule look like?
No. Yeah. So I'm actually, I'll redo it. So I say, Devin, thanks for taking my call. It's Matt with Formcraft. We design and construct office spaces. The reason I'm calling you today, Devin, curious to learn how we might be useful to your team down the road.
Okay.
So it's down the road. How's my time related to your office space needs? So a lot of salespeople, they will probably call and say, the reason I'm calling is to set an appointment with you. I don't do that. It's all about in the future for me, because I know right now they're probably not going to want to meet. Now, there are a lot of times when we do set meetings on the first call. And it's just because the cold call the right way. And
It's just the perfect timing. I always call them the perfect timing calls. You know what I mean?
Perfect timing. So I guess for you, and forgive me, I'm just going to read off my paper here because I put together one for you guys. I don't know if this is really going to be relevant or.
It don't matter. I'll give you a scenario and I'll give you some of the dialogues that we use, and then you can correct me and kind of adjust us like on how to do it a little bit better.
Okay. All right. Want me to give you it? Okay.
Yep.
Devin, thanks for taking my call. It's Matt with Keller Williams Realtors. The reason for the call, I understand you're selling your house. I work with a lot of buyers and sellers in Marlton, and it's my goal to see how we might be useful getting that house sold for you. How's my timing today related to your real estate needs? I don't know if
That's actually, to me,
Yeah, it's great.
I don't know.
It's a little less threatening, if that makes any sense.
What do you mean with
What do
threatening?
you mean, how's my timing versus, hey, like, I'll give you an example. Like, this is literally my call today, right? I said, I forget what this guy's name is, the one guy I called. And I said, hey, this is, hey, Sharif, this is Devin DiNofa with Keller Williams in Morristown. And I happened to note, I was, going through the market, and I happened to notice that you were trying to sell this house and it didn't sell. And I just wanted to know if you were still actually thinking about selling the house. Like, that was my, so that was kind of like a hard, answer for, somebody who's answering the phone, like, holy shit, like, oh, but I felt like with the way that you positioned it, it kind of, if this makes any sense, made them a little bit more at ease to, kind of think about an answer, if that makes any sense.
No, that makes sense.
But that's what I was, and in my mind, I'm like, hey, just pound these calls out, and hey, hopefully we get some perfect timing, to where eventually you'll call someone and be like, hey, you know what, you called me at the right time, because it's happened. And Andy too, and he's not on this call, but one of his first listings, I said, listen, we sold this house in less than a week. Call the whole neighborhood, let them know, hey, listen, we just sold the house. Our team sold the house in less than a week in your neighborhood. There's a lot of interest, with homes in this development. Are you thinking about selling? And sometimes you may get that. You know what I mean? But with that type of script, I feel like you may have to make a lot more calls than if you position it with kind of a better script that maybe opens people up a little bit more.
Yeah. And we could sit down, Devin, and we could come up with a couple scripts. I think if we sat down for 30, 45 minutes, we could come up with a few different scripts for a few different scenarios of why you guys are calling, just with that formula. And you guys could try, again, this is what works for me. It might not work for you. I would just do a lot of A/B testing with different scripts with the different scenarios and see what works.
Yeah.
We try one script for 100 calls and try another script for 100 calls. What script worked better? And It's all about really what are you comfortable saying on the phone.
Yeah.
And I guess like to kind of
Yeah.
do you recommend or do you think that you should just flat out are you asking for the business or are you trying to just build up rapport on the first call? So like to kind of go off of the example of like, hey, you're calling expired. Hey, I seen your house didn't sell. I have buyers and sellers in the area. I can be that guy that can sell it. Or are you saying like, hey, is there questions I can answer? And then maybe on the second call you're asking for the business, or you just at that point are you asking for it?
It really depends on the situation.
Yeah.
I know that's not probably the best answer or the answer that.
Well, it's a tough question. It's not a fair question to answer, but
yeah, like on a first cold call, like I said, on the first cold call, the first time I'm ever speaking to this person has no idea who I am. I'm probably not going to be going for the business. Now, if they're engaged in a conversation and they seem like they're very happy to be speaking with me, 100% I'm asking for the meeting.
Yeah.
But if the prospect is giving me like one-word answers and they're not really engaged and I kind of feel like they're going to want to end this call soon, then I'm just going to simply ask them when it makes sense to get back on the radar for what I do. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, because it's different businesses or fields, but it kind of let the call develop and just build the rapport. And hey, if you can ask for it. But if you have to follow up and say, hey, we spoke before, it's a little easier the second time around.
Yeah, Tom, I actually think this goes back to the mindset. So my only goal or my mindset is to simply see what might happen. And if it makes sense to ask for the meeting, great. I'm going to ask. And if they say, oh, that's okay. If it doesn't make sense, that's okay. So I'm not really going in like guns a-blazing. Now, in a follow-up call, depending on the conversation, I might say the reason I'm calling, we spoke on back in October, you were kind enough inviting me to call you back to set up a meeting today to sit down for 15 minutes. When can you – I'm going in for the kill. Then I'm absolutely going in for the kill.
That makes sense.
Okay?
Yeah,
so you guys get the – and I can send you like my outline. I can send you like all my scripts and all that stuff. I can send that to Devin. He can send it to you guys. Does that make sense with the cold call opening, like kind of the framework that I use? And because that, I mean, like I said, that works for me. I've been using that framework for probably the last like 6 months. And the old scripts that I used to use, I was looking at today, they were so long. And it was all these words and it just, oh my God, I don't even know how I got any appointments with this script. Because they were just long, they were boring, and there's no way the prospect's going to be engaged with a long script.
Matt, how do you stay organized, and is there specific tools or anything online that you use for tracking?
Tracking stats? Is that what you're talking?
And just like, you know, who you spoke to, what happened, when you're going to follow up. Is there a program you use, or is it something you created yourself? Or
yeah, we use Salesforce. So every single call I make is logged with a detailed explanation of exactly what happened on that call.
You have to manually do it?
I manually do it.
You have to manually go in there.
Now I have all these acronyms that I write in there that it only takes me 2 seconds to write a note, and then I always schedule a follow-up task. So every call I made today, I think I made 50 calls, all logged in Salesforce, all scheduled with a follow-up task.
So if we have, for example, like a CRM, right? Salesforce is essentially a CRM, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like where you put your contacts.
Yeah.
So let's just say like today, you know, I made my calls and I had, you know, literally 4 good conversations with people. And my routine, what I would do is I'd write their name, phone number, and address. And I'd have them, you know, on a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, what I did. And then I put them on my mailing list too. So I'd mail out to them once a month so they get my information. But what you're saying is maybe like, for example, with Keller Williams, we have KW Command, which is a big CRM, or a lot of us use Lines Desk. And what you're saying is, hey, maybe just have a tag, cold call leads, like create a tab, cold call leads, and then manually put in, okay, and this is a discipline. This takes being, very detailed, but let's just say I talked to John Stewart and, he lives at 334, Carrick Street in Morristown.
Mm-hmm.
And after I have that good conversation with him, you're saying what you do is you go into in our world, Lines Desk or KW Command, you put in his name, you put in his phone number, you put in the address, and you put in the notes. And maybe
everything's automated, because the only way that I know to follow up with someone, I'm not going to remember it. I'm making so many calls. I'm not going to put it into Microsoft Outlook. That's just not efficient. We put everything in Salesforce. If it's not logged in Salesforce, we say FormCraft, it never happened. So if you guys have a CRM, I would definitely encourage you guys to definitely hop on that and use it. Like there was a real estate agent I met with 2 weeks ago. He's a commercial real estate agent. He's actually a good friend of mine, and he's using Microsoft Excel for everything. And he has Salesforce Lightning. He has all of his notes, all of his contacts in Excel. And I asked him, how do you know when to follow up? He said, I just know. There's no way you just know when you have 800 contacts in Excel, when you can easily just put it into. So when I put it into Salesforce, when I walk in tomorrow morning, when I log into Salesforce, 50 calls will pop up on the right side of my screen. Okay, these are the 50 people I'm calling today. And we could talk about this in a different call, but one of the most important, probably the most important thing I do during my day is plan my next day. Because if I don't plan my next day and I'm spending 2-3 hours of my day trying to figure out who I'm going to call, that's just wasting time.
Yeah.
So, the most important thing I do every day at 4 to 6 is plan out exactly who I'm calling, who I'm emailing, who I'm sending handwritten notes to, all that stuff, door knocking for the next day. Cool.
And that's great, because in our world, it's, whether it's kind of documenting or building out the call list on the neighborhood that you're calling for the next day, or the development that you're calling for the next day. Like, that's what you got to have prepared.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's a great point. And that's just like anything, it's like, hey, sometimes I wake up early and plan out my day early in the morning. I'll put in my calendar, I have my Power 5,
at 4 a.m.
and then I'll put in what's up?
You wake up at 4 a.m.?
Yeah, I just started doing the 4 now. But it gives me time before my kids wake up now, when I get back from the gym, to kind of plan out my day and time block it almost.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that's very important to kind of prepare, at the end of your day, who am I calling tomorrow? What development am I calling tomorrow?
Yeah.
What list did I build out to call tomorrow? All right. So let's continue.
Yeah. So now I guess we can. So we did the opening framework, and one of my objections of the opening framework was to get to the first objection as quickly as possible. So now we can move into. I just have a simple 4-step framework that I follow for every objection. And once you expect to get you always have to expect to get objections. And once you know these and know how to handle them and practice them, they're the easiest thing. And I think that's the funnest thing to do on a cold call, is to handle an objection.
And I love that mindset you had too. So when you think of it like that, you're not worried about someone saying no to you or fighting you on the call. Usually the basic mindset is, you're terrified when they're about to not go with the flow of your conversation. And if they don't go and make it easy for you, then it's the call crashes and burns. But if you go into it excited about I can't wait till they say this, because then I'm going to hit them with this. That's a whole different shift for you.
Mm-hmm. All right. So step number 1 of the 4 steps, I always pause. So pausing demonstrates to the prospect who I'm calling that I wasn't just waiting for them to stop speaking so I could start selling, right? Because I think a lot of times salespeople will just jump right down the prospect's throat once they stop speaking, whether it's an objection or not. And they just want to get out what their thoughts are, right? So always pause, because it shows that I'm actively listening. Step number 2, I use a ledge statement. So a ledge statement gives my brain 1 to 2 seconds to figure out how to properly handle the objection and then move the conversation forward. Number 3, I want to disrupt. So disruption. So I want to say something that they're not typically accustomed to hearing from other salespeople. And then number 4, I ask another open-ended question with the goal to get them engaged in a conversation, to get back into a conversation with them. So step number 1 was pause. Step number 2 was ledge statement. Ledge statement goes into disruption. And then step number 4 was ask an open-ended question.
Give me an example of a ledge statement.
Oh, yeah, I got ledge statements here.
Okay.
Statements, some examples. That makes sense. I expected you to say that. That's what I expected. That's exactly why I called. I expected that. I'm with you. Those are examples. Now, saying I understand is a ledge statement. But every other sales rep says I understand. And quite frankly, I think they're expecting you to say, when they say they're not interested, I understand. So that kind of plays into disruption. So that makes sense. I say that a ton. That makes sense. That's exactly why I called. I expected you to say that. Or if they say, Matt, I'm not interested, I didn't expect you to be interested. I'm with you. I get it. Stuff like that.
Okay.
And you guys all this. And there's a book that I read called Objections by Jeb Blunt. Probably one of the best sales books I read. This is exactly his framework, and these are his teachings. So I didn't come up with this. I didn't come up with any of this.
Yep.
I got this from his book, and I go and reference this book on a daily basis. Definitely read his book. It's the best objectional handling process, I think, out there. And not to get off track, I follow 2 real estate agents on YouTube religiously. One's Ryan Serhant. I'm wearing his hoodie right now. I'm sure you guys all know Ryan Serhant from $1 Million Listing. He posts videos every single Wednesday night at 8 p.m.
My wife just literally tagged me, and it's so funny you said that.
His videos are, and he's just so good, and it's really actionable advice. And then there's this guy called Brian Casella. It's BryanCasella.
Well, slow down. Bryan.
Bryan. Casella. He worked for Keller Williams in California. Now he works for this company called EXP Real Estate.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, so he puts videos out every single day, and he's definitely the reason why I put videos on YouTube and LinkedIn. I started watching his videos when I was at Comcast. I learned a ton, and the videos follow him from when he was starting out as a real estate agent, right when he started, to now 6 years later, he's making millions and millions of dollars, and he puts these videos out. How to handle every objection a real estate agent gets. You got to check these videos out. How to open a cold call, live cold call role plays, objection handling role plays. And he's top notch. So if you guys want to check him out, I would definitely do that.
Guys, all you got to do is go literally copy him. I just did it. Copy and paste his name in YouTube and subscribe to his YouTube channel. And it will, like Matt, when I'm subscribed to yours, it pops up whenever you bust out a new video.
All right, so those are some ledge statements. So I guess some examples that I could give you guys with some objections. So when I'm asking on the cold call opening and I say, how's my timing related to your office space on Market Street, and the prospect comes back and says, this happens probably 5 out of 10 times. They say, Matt, your timing sucks. We got nothing going on. I simply say, that makes sense, Devin. Didn't expect you folks to be in the market for what we do today. It was my goal to find out when it makes sense to get back on the radar for an office-based project. When is that going to come up with you guys? Or, Matt, your timing sucks. That makes sense. It's extremely rare when my timing's perfect. When do you guys see an office-based project coming up?
Wow. All right. So that's a nice little breakthrough I just had right there. So I'm talking to this guy who had an expired listing, and I get on the phone with him, and I say, hey, listen, I noticed that you tried listing your house and it's for sale, where you think it, are you still interested in selling it? And and they go, no, not right now. Hey, listen, that makes total sense. Usually whenever I make these calls, they always say like right now is not the time, because they've probably been through a lot of negative experience with their last realtor. But when do you feel would be a good time for me to kind of either be perfect timing for you or follow back up with you? Is that how we should say it? Or?
Yeah, just when do you see real estate need becoming a priority?
Yeah.
Okay, probably 2 years, Devin. Awesome. I'll put it into my calendar. Just so I know for the future, Devin, what do you typically look for in a real estate agent? And then just start getting into the call.
Okay.
So we could go through a couple more objections.
Yeah. But no, I like that ledger statement to where when you say that, you make them feel a little bit more comfortable now because they start feeling like you're feeling them. You're on their side almost.
I'm acknowledging them. So timing isn't great. Again, I'll say that makes sense. It's extremely rare when my timing's perfect. When do you guys see an office space project coming on?
Yeah. When do you see a need? You know, when do you see yourself wanting to put this home back on the market?
Exactly. And then let's say they say to you, yeah, Devin, we're working with someone right now. Awesome. Devin, if you're working with someone you like and you've been with them a while, if I were you, I probably wouldn't change either. We're really good at being the Nick Foles for businesses. We're the backup plan. We're the alternative. But guess what? If something goes awry or your situation or relationship changes with your current vendor, we could step up and deliver for you. How can we become the Nick Foles for your business?
That's huge. AKA, how can we become the backup if your realtor can't sell this house or if they present you a marketing game plan that doesn't compare to ours?
Or a question I got from my sales coach, how I might handle it. Great, Devin, if you're using someone you like, you've been with them a while, if I were you, there's no way I would change. What would have to happen for you folks to consider an alternative?
That's huge. And I'll tell you what, guys, like if I were to have this conversation before I made that call today, this is why this call is so important if you're taking it for granted. Like that could have been the difference of an $800,000 listing that I had today from the dialogue that you just gave me. I probably could have extended that conversation to make him more comfortable with me and schedule an appointment. But I'm going to use that now for the next time I make these calls.
And like I said, I'll send everyone. Oh, one more tip. Whenever I'm making cold calls, I have my notes in front of me. I have my objection handlers right here, and I have my cold call script and all my questions that I like to ask right in front of me. Now, I have it down at this point, but there was a time yesterday someone said something. I forgot how to handle it. I looked down at my sheet. Oh, that's how to handle it.
Yeah.
So a couple more we can run through.
Yep.
Devin says, I'm not interested. That makes sense, Devin. Most people are not interested the first time I call. Then simply ask a question. Ask an open-ended question that gets them engaged in a conversation.
Give me some examples of some open-ended questions and try and make them into like real estate terms.
All my questions here are pretty much geared towards.
Yeah.
But
give us one of them, and we can.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I use: what do you typically look for in a real estate agent? A question that I ask a lot to like CEOs and CFOs. I don't know if it'll work with a home buyer. Curious, what's your top priority for 2020?
Yeah.
And the reason I'm asking, Devin, if it's not to sell your house, we probably shouldn't meet right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could put some questions together for you guys that might work.
No, but it's just the idea of asking a question for them to just not be able to shut you down with yes or no.
Yeah, I have all my questions out. And I typically go to the same questions almost every time. If they're giving me stuff on the phone, yeah, you're gonna go with that. But if they're not giving much, I'm asking the same. And I'm only asking tops 3 questions on the call. Even when I ask for an appointment, there's not a lot of questions going on. Because that goes into our next point, which is closing out the call, because there's definitely a right way to do it. And I think that, this is something I learned from my coach. And I know that, 99% of salespeople don't do it the right way.
Yeah.
Do you guys get the whole objection stuff though? Is there like any objections you guys get, like a lot, on like a cold call with a buyer that you might want to work through? Or
yeah, I mean, I'll tell you right now, because remember we have some new people on this call that just got licensed too. But for the most part, you'll deal with some buyer leads that you're cold calling, and you're like, hey, I noticed that you were, interested in, our, I'm just making up stuff, like our VA home buyer program that you opted in on our Facebook ad.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see if, if I don't know if that was you or, or where you're at in this situation, or if you are interested in purchasing a home at the moment. And then they turn around and go, I'm thinking about it. I don't really know what I want to do yet. Like just stupid shit like that. Obviously, best case scenario is, yeah, that was me. You know what I mean? But yeah. Well, what's the next steps? But if they go, I'm not sure if I want to make the move. Yeah, potential, stuff like that. Then you're saying that you hit them with an open-ended question to keep it going.
Yeah, just the pause, ledge statement, open-ended question.
Yeah.
And
I
now,
understand most of the time when we make these calls, people don't know right off the bat when exactly that they're ready to make the first step to get pre-qualified. But if I could ask you when it would be convenient, when do you think the best time it would be to kind of get the ball rolling with this?
Exactly. And then one objection you got, I get it. I used to get it a ton at Comcast Business because everybody hates Comcast.
Yeah.
I think we were we talking about that the other day, Devin? Everyone hates Comcast. It might not have been you. But I don't know. You guys might get this when you're calling people at their home. I don't know if you call people at their home or not.
Yeah, dude, we'll call, and not all of us, but like one of our avenues that we have to lead generate, which is how some of us got some business, is by just calling houses, developments.
Yeah. Okay.
Like let's just say a property, and I give scenarios for our people. Like, hey, listen, pick a house in a development that Keller Williams sold very quick, and that's your reason to call the surrounding houses to spark interest, to stimulate interest, and to hopefully make them want to see if they want to sell their house.
Got it.
I think one of our bigger hurdles is like it does have to be like good timing, because a lot of these calls that you could make is they don't realize they need our service until they need our service. So it's not like, hey, like, are you thinking of buying or selling? And then you can kind of build a long-term, because it's like, all right, well, no, I'm not thinking about selling my house, but in 6 months, their whole life could change and maybe they are. So it's more of a timing thing maybe for us.
Exactly. And timing is really big for me too. A company only does a renovation or relocation once every 5, 7, 10, 15 years, depending on their lease. So I completely get where you're coming from, Tom. It can get frustrating with the timing thing, man. Things have a way of changing. I don't want to be a pest, but I don't want to miss an opportunity to serve you in your home buying needs. How much time between now and the next time we speak?
Yeah, I like that.
Is that good?
Yeah.
On to the closing out the call.
Yep. Yeah. Because we're a little bit over 9:30.
Sorry, guys.
I just want to respect everybody's time, but this is good stuff. This is all valuable stuff.
I'll go real quick through this. All right. So it's really important when closing out the call, always be the person to end the call. So it's been really rare this year when I've made a cold call and made contact with someone, and the prospect decided to hop off the call or make up some excuse to stop talking to me. And the only way you really figure out how and when it's appropriate to invite yourself out of the call is just by practice. Practice and experience in making a ton of calls. But you never want to be the person, or you don't want them to be the person who ends the call. You always want to end the call. Right?
Why is that?
Because that's going to set up your ask. If you're going for a meeting, that's going to set up your ask. If they decide to end the call early, you're not going to have the necessary time needed to set up that ask and ask. And it's going to be rushed and it's going to be uncomfortable. And at that point, they don't want to be talking to you and you're just throwing up a Hail Mary.
Yep.
So always invite yourself out. I think that's one thing that a lot of salespeople mess up is they try just to talk and talk and talk and talk and information dump. And then the prospect stops listening and they're inviting themselves or they're exiting the call. So really important, always invite yourself out of the call. That's just one tip. So if the prospect is not or is engaged, they're not just giving me one-word answers. Tom, I'm going for the meeting every time. I'm asking every time. If they're giving me one-word answers, Matt, I don't know, their tone's not really good. I'm not going for the meeting. And it's
That's when you hit them with the ledger. Then you hit them.
No ledge statement. I'm just going to simply invite myself out of the call, and I'll give you the language for that.
Okay.
Find out when I need to get back on the radar, right? Just make sure I got all my points here before we move in. All right, so if I'm on the phone with Devin and the call is going really well, and I want to ask for an appointment, I'm simply going to say this: Devin, thanks for spending time with me on the phone today. I'm about to take a risk here. How open would you be? And then I'm going to ask, maybe sitting down for coffee for 15 minutes. What are the chances we could sit down for, 15 minutes and explore this in more detail? So Devin, thanks for taking my call, or thanks for spending time with me on the phone today. I'm going to take a risk here, Devin. How open would you be to meeting, for 15 minutes the next time I'm in your neighborhood to see if we can help you out down the road with your real estate needs? And the reason why I set it up with I'm about to take a risk here, it's always a risk to ask for someone's time, and you're kind of setting the stage and kind of calling yourself out for the ask. And that's also something I learned from my sales coach, John Clemson. So just thank them for inviting myself out. Devin, I really appreciate you picking up the phone and spending 2 minutes with me today on the phone. Going to take a risk here. What are the chances we can meet for 15 minutes the next time I'm in the area?
Yeah,
I love it.
What are the chances we can shake hands in your doorway the next time I'm in the neighborhood?
Okay.
Low ask.
Okay.
And then just provide I'll always provide at least 2 times.
Okay, so that's important. Always have 2 times ready to kind of make them commit so you can set an appointment.
So now, and do you say, hey, what's a good time for you, or you give them the time?
I give them a couple times.
Good.
I give them Tom, no time's good for me.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah. And how I kind of ask for anything I want on a cold call is I either start it with how open would you be, or what are the chances? Because you can't say no to either of those.
Okay.
Right? You can't say no to what are the chances we can meet. You could say
No.
I can't meet.
Yeah.
You can't say no. So that's how I ask for the meeting. And I would say that right now, if I get 20 prospects out of 100 on the phone, 20 contacts out of 100, we'll probably book an appointment. Now the appointments that I'm booking sometimes are very low ask. What are the chances we can meet for 5 minutes in your lobby and shake hands? It's a low ask. Typically turns into 15 minutes though. And then to go back to what you were saying, Devin, if they're not engaged in the conversation, and I know that there's no point in me asking for the appointment right now. It's just going to feel uncomfortable for me, uncomfortable for them. It's not going to make sense. Devin, thanks for taking my call. When do you feel it makes sense to get back on your radar for an office-based project? When do you feel it makes sense to get back on your radar for, home buying needs or home selling?
A home consultation or a market value consultation or something like that.
So I'm not a pest, Devin, and I am very persistent, but I want to be professional here. So I'm not a pest. Let me know how much time between now and the next time we speak regarding your home buying needs.
I like that dialogue too. So I'm not a pest, so I'm not annoying, or however you want to phrase it. When would be a good time to kind of.
It would be a good time to have a conversation about this in more detail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you guys got any questions or? And like I said, if there's anything we didn't hit on, or you wanted, or Devin, if you wanted to talk about something else, we could always do it on another call or whatever. But I really would follow Brian Casella.
Yeah.
Spell that last name.
Yeah, it's Bryan Casella. I mean, this guy's a professional. This guy is.
What was the other guy's name? Ryan
Serhant. It's RyanSerhant.
Yeah, and maybe for a future call, I mean, this was incredible, but maybe a future call would be diving into that YouTube aspect of what you do.
Yeah.
I know, Devin. I mean, the videos that you do, I think that could help too. Any little pointers you could give there. I mean, this
I
was
watch your videos, Tom. I watched your video today.
yeah.
Wednesday.
It's funny. It's people say it like it's like people are like, oh, my nieces and nephews know it's coming. So I don't know, pointers on that and YouTube and all that. But man, this was incredible. Thank you so much. I mean,
No, I appreciate you guys like giving me time. And if any of you guys want to like role play, or I'm always open to role play, I'll come into the office and we can, role play a couple cold calls. Cause I think, we role play for like 25 minutes every morning. And if I didn't role play and I started practicing on a prospect, it's like LeBron James not warming up. And now it seems like I'm calling myself LeBron James. I'm calling myself LeBron James because I know Devin's a big LeBron.
He doesn't need to fucking warm up, Matt. All right?
We're like Ben Simmons now, man. We're like Ben Simmons with that 3 last night. But no, like if you guys ever want to, I'm always, not always, but I'm at the office sometimes with Devin. You guys ever want to meet up for a coffee or
yeah. And Matt, I remember one of your videos too, guys, because I want to highlight this because sometimes too when we begin our cold calls, and Matt, you highlighted this the one time. Remember, your first couple of calls, you're going to be rusty.
Yeah.
You're going to feel a little bit uncomfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got to find ways to keep yourself energized. Maybe you're not good at making cold calls sitting down. You just, sometimes motion creates emotion, right? So it's just better walking around. Like Matt, highlight. I remember you talking about like, hey, sometimes you got to get into the flow of like, it may take the 5th call for you to start getting comfortable and like get your wheels going.
Exactly. It's like you're shooting free throws. I know I keep going back to the sales thing, but once you see a couple shots go in, you get into a rhythm, get into a flow, and it's going to be really easy. That's why you got to do your calls in bunches. If you do one call and you wait 5 minutes and you get up and go get a snack, it's not going to work. You got to do them like in time blocks. So I always do 20 calls at once.
That's perfect. Yep.
20 calls, I walk around my building.
Yep.
20, walk around my building, finish up with another 20, and it's
or walk to the water cooler, get yourself. Dude, that just happened to me today, and when I always do, it's like after like it's sometimes after 10 you're starting to feel like but like once 20 comes, it's like that's the perfect time to like, all right, get a little recharge, get your mind off of the prospecting, and then go right back to it, like reset the
And here's just one more thing before we go. We actually have a group me or a group text. And whenever we have a really bad call or a bad door knock, whatever, we just put it in there and we just laugh about it. And I remember at Comcast Business, what we used to do is every sales meeting, we used to put up, I would have for my door knocks with businesses like 30 business cards. And we would always pick the worst card for the day. And then we'd have to get up in front of the room and tell a story about why that door sucks. So we're just laughing about it.
Yeah.
In fun of it. But
it's a mindset shift, dude.
Yeah, that definitely helps. But I really appreciate you guys. And if you guys want to do another call about something else later on down the road, and be more than happy to do it. But
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. Thank you.
And guys, don't forget I put the link to his YouTube channel in the in our TCS group too. So feel free to just subscribe, maybe give him a share, stuff like that, just to support him. For him taking an hour of a little bit more of his time out, at night, to pour into us a little bit. But yeah, dude, Matt, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
Also, guys, subscribe to exactly what he just told us to too, because like I said, man, YouTube could be just as valuable as a college education, right? So hop on there, learn those videos and stuff like that, guys. And most importantly, implement it, right? So maybe take one step of action. Right in your calendar tomorrow, like right after you learn this, to take one little minimum step to implement it. Maybe you say, hey, all right, I'm going to block out, an hour tomorrow to start practicing. And again, practice, role play it, but just make the calls. And you'll get more and more comfortable as you consistently making the calls. The only reason why Matt's comfortable on you talking about this is because he put in the time to make the calls. That's it. You know what I mean? That's why he's so comfortable learning what works, what didn't work. Why he's so confident now, because he put in hundreds of calls to have this conversation with us.
There you have it, guys. Special shout out to Devin for inviting me into the meeting. Look out for videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and Cinema Saturday. Thanks for watching, guys.